Experience. I'm here with NASCAR on Fox Sports analyst Larry McReynolds for our first installment of Chase Gridology. Now, very diverse field. Before we get started though, I want you to tell us, how do you go about choosing who's going to advance and who's going to be eliminated? What are you looking at?
Yeah, in our sport, Kim, is so different from stick and ball sports, because if you're filling out your NCAA bracket for March Madness, it's about human beings and their performance on a basketball court. But when you think about, yeah, we have our athletes here, we have these guys that are going to go after this championship. There's so many elements involved that they can't control. They have this 3,300-pound race car that has an engine, it has tires, it has all those things, and those are the things that we can't forecast. But I've got to say, having this bracket, I've seen it 65 years of NASCAR. We've never had anything like this. To me, it's creating a new buzz. I think it's creating new fans because they're walking by the break room. They're walking by the office cubicles and go, hey, what is that bracket you have there? Because this is the first time that NASCAR Sprint has had a format that allows us to have a bracket where we truly are going to have elimination over the course of these races.
Well, let's get started. So, obviously 16 challengers in the challenger round. Who do you have moving on to be one of the 12 contenders as we head to Kansas, Charlotte, and Talladega?
Both of the two Team Penske drivers, Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano, no question they will advance to that next round.
Very good. So we've got Team Penske advancing to the next round, so Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano. That leaves us with 10 more spots. Who else are we looking at?
Yeah, you know, I'm going to go a different direction here. I'm gonna look at a driver that has not won a race this year. He's not necessarily been at the forefront as far as performance. He only has 2 top 5 finishes in 2014, but he has been a model of consistency. And I do believe the mentality in the garage area in the Challenger 16 round is, yeah, they want to win a race, but I think with that many drivers, they feel like that there'll be 4 drivers that will have a bad race. So if I can have 3 good races, regardless if I win, that's going to move on. And I think Ryan Newman, the guy all the way at the bottom in that 31 car, I think he will be another driver that will advance to that second round.
Okay, so we're going to add Ryan Newman. Fans, I hope you're taking notes for your grids too. All right, next up.
All right, we'll go with the guy that I mentioned a while ago. I see Kevin Harvick in his very first year at Stewart-Haas Racing definitely going to the second round. I think the guy that started the year off, he went to victory lane, and the first thing out of his mouth was, I'm in the chase. Dale Earnhardt Jr. winning that Daytona 500 and following it up by sweeping the Pocono races. Looks like to me he may be in the best shape he's been in a long, long time to be a championship contender. And while we're riding, why don't we just go ahead and move one of his teammates over there? Mr. 6-time, looking for 7-time, Jimmy Johnson in that 48 car, because I want you to look at where the third race of this first round is. I think he's won there 9 times at Dover, Jimmy Johnson in that 48 team. But you know what, Juliana, let's go ahead and let's move what I call Big Daddy over to that second round, Jeff Gordon. I think the drive for 5 is alive for 24 team and Jeff Gordon, looking for his first championship. Hard to believe since 2001.
2001, yeah, definitely a renewed season for him. All right, it looks like we've got, what, 5 spots left. Who's it going to be next?
I'm going to go ahead and move Kurt Busch in that 41 team.
All right, I'm glad you mentioned Kurt Busch. A couple of those guys, Kurt being one of them, kind of punched their ticket early for the chase and haven't performed as well as we moved closer to the chase for the NASCAR Sprint Cup. Talk a little bit about that. Are we going to see maybe them amp up their game as we move in to the chase?
Well, and I'm already seeing that, Kim, because let's just take the first 26 races and split it down the middle. If you look at the first 13 or 14 races, he got that win at Martinsville, but he had 5 DNFs. In fact, there was a question there. Remember, one of the criteria, even if you win, is you have to be in the top 30 in Sprint Cup Series points to move on to the chase for the championship. There was a question, was he going to stay in the top 30? But it seems like that once he and Daniel Knost, who is a rookie crew chief, once they started making that second trip around to some of the racetracks, that definitely they're starting to ramp up their performance, and the DNFs seem like they're going away, and then that's going to be a big key in this chase for the championship. So we know Kurt certainly knows how to win the championship, and he made the chase last year driving for a single car team, Furniture Row, that number 78 car.
All right, 4 spots left. Who's it going to be?
Well, Since we're talking about Kurt Busch, why don't we talk about his brother Kyle Busch? Now, I do put a big question mark over Kyle Busch because he went through a period during the month of July where in 4 races he had 3 second-place finishes. And then the wheel has absolutely fallen off that 18 car. If you look at his last 6 races, the best finish he has had was that 14th place finish at Richmond last week. But if I look back at last year's chase, he started the chase off with 2 second-place finishes here at Chicagoland and at Loudon and 3 top 5 finishes. I think Rowdy and them, they're going to start rising to the top, and I definitely think they'll advance to that Contender 12 round.
All right, another guy that punched his ticket early. So 3 spots left.
I talked about him earlier. 7 wins last year and battled for that championship to the very bitter end. In fact, it was probably Phoenix, the next to the last race, that was the dying blow for Matt Kenseth. But I still believe he won this race a year ago. He actually followed it up by winning the 2nd race to the chase for the championship last year at Loudon. I just believe Matt Kenseth, you can never, ever take your eye off of Matt Kenseth in that 20 car. All right, well, I still believe that I'm seeing the performance come up a little bit with the 11 team and Denny Hamlin. Got that win at Talladega. That's the only win that he has so far, so he has not won a non-restrictor plate race, but I believe Denny Hamlin will make it a sweep as far as the Joe Gibbs drivers moving on to that 2nd round.
All right, so the last spot, the very last spot for that 12 contenders.
I just find it hard to believe that neither one of the Roush Fenway Ford drivers will advance. And that was a huge debate between Casey Kane and Carl Edwards, but I just believe Cousin Carl in his last year with Roush Fenway Racing, I do believe he will at least advance to that 2nd round, and that's unfortunately going to leave Casey Kane on the outside.
It does leave him on the outside. So we've seen your 12 contender picks. Who do you have moving on to the Eliminator round, those Eliminator 8, as we go to Martinsville, Texas, and Phoenix?
Let's just go ahead and move those 2 Team Penske Ford drivers on to that 3rd round.
Who do we have next?
Well, we're going to stay with the man that we call him the closer. We call him Mr. Where Did He Come From? And where he's come from this year is winning 2 races and leading a ton of laps, sitting on more poles than any other driver. Kevin Harvick will definitely move on to the Eliminator 8 round.
All right, Kevin Harvick moving over.
I call him again, Old Big Daddy, the drive for 5, Jeff Gordon in that 2014. He's just going to keep on keeping on, and he'll move on to that 3rd round.
All right, I'm going to ask you then right now, do we have any other Team Hendrick cars moving into the Eliminator round?
We do. We have the same 3 that moved to the Contender 12. We have those 3, which would include Jimmy Johnson and Dale Earnhardt Jr. moving on to the Eliminator 8 round. If you think about it, Jeff Gordon, we've already moved him over. He won the Kansas race back. Jimmy Johnson won at Charlotte, and we know the man we call the Pied Piper, Dale Earnhardt Jr., he loves Talladega. Just like his dad, he loves being up at the front leading the pack around there. So definitely all 3 of those Hendrick Chevrolet drivers will move on to the Eliminator 8.
All right, 2 spots left in that Eliminator round. How are we going to finish it out?
Well, you know, I talked about Jeff Gordon winning at Kansas, and I talked about Jimmy Johnson winning at Charlotte. And looking back who won the race at Talladega in the spring, it does not mean anything because we know a 500-mile race, 188 laps, and it comes down to a driver making the right or wrong decision, possibly through turn 3 and 4 or in the tri-oval with the checker flag waving. But regardless, he did win there in the spring. And if you think about also, if we can get him over in the Eliminator 8, Martinsville's a big dot on his radar. I just see Denny Hamlin, that 11 team, at least moving on to that Eliminator 8.
So who is going to fill up that last spot in the Eliminator round?
Well, we're going to go with a Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota driver. And unfortunately, when the Eliminator 8 boat leaves the dock, Matt Kenseth will be on it. Kyle Busch will not be on it. He's going to be sitting on the dock, and he will not move on to that Eliminator 8. But it will, Joe Gibbs Racing, they will have 2 of their Toyota drivers in that very 3rd round Eliminator 8. So as you can see, we did not move Cousin Carl on to the Eliminator 8. We did not move Kyle Busch. We talked about Kurt Busch. And we did not move Ryan Newman. I think consistency, and this is not me, this is the garage area. I think they know, as I mentioned earlier, with 16 drivers, consistency will move you on. But I think with the caliber drivers in the Contender 12, the Eliminator 8, They feel like that you're going to have to win one of those races if you want to absolutely guarantee to move on to the next round. And that's what kind of led me to the 8 drivers that you see there in that 3rd round.
All right, your grid is almost complete. As we move to Ford Championship weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway, there's room for 4 drivers to be competing for that championship spot. Who do you have as your championship 4?
Well, this was a tough one. The mountain got straight up and down on this one, because how in the world, I guess my question is, how in the world do you eliminate any of those 8 drivers? How do you eliminate 8 of those drivers from saying they will not go to Homestead Miami Speedway and be a part of this championship? But I keep riding this bandwagon, and I ride it for a reason. I definitely think Joey Logano in that 22 car, this is only his 2nd year to make the chase, but I think he's definitely going to be one of the guys that rides into Homestead with still having the yellow splitter, the yellow windshield banner, and the yellow roof number, as one of those contenders in the championship for.
All right, so Jolo moves on. Who's next?
Well, I think possibly when we get to Homestead Miami Speedway, one of the toughest competitors he's going to have is going to be right across the shop where the same cars are prepared. I think Brad Keselowski and that 2 team, both the 2 Team Penske drivers, will be at Homestead Miami Speedway battling for this championship.
All right. Who's going to be the next 2?
Well, this was where I debated long and hard, but looking at the speed that they've had, looking at some changes that they have made, and when you think about Kevin Harvick, even though it's a different format, he has finished 3rd in the points 3 out of the last 4 years. And I think Kevin Harvick and that Ford team with Rodney Childers, I think they're on a mission, and I think one of their missions that they're going to be on is get to Homestead Miami Speedway, because think about the last race in the Eliminator 8 round, Phoenix, and that's one of the 2 places that he did win at earlier in the season.
I'm glad you picked Harvick. He's actually been my championship pick since the very beginning of the season. One more spot to fill. I have no idea what direction you're going.
I don't either.
You don't either.
This was a tough one. And if I may walk over here, I think the determining factor is who wins this first race in the Eliminator 8. Outside of Denny Hamlin, what 2 drivers have the most success at Martinsville? Gordon and Jimmy Johnson. So I think it could come down to between those 2, who wins the race at Martinsville.
All right.
But maybe I'm letting my heart get in the way of my brain just a little bit, because he is 43 years old. I just think Jeff Gordon is going to be on that ship that leaves out to go to Homestead Miami Speedway as a championship contender. And 06 time is going to be waving to him saying good luck, but I will be back next year.
The battle is set. We're at Homestead Miami Speedway. We've got Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, and Jeff Gordon. There's only room for 1 champion. Somebody's taking home this trophy right here. Who's it going to be?
Okay. I just think when it's all said and done, bad Brad Keselowski is going to get his second championship. It's a tough one. You know, you may call me out here to the Sprint Experience after the race at Phoenix leading into Homestead, and my 4 may not even be up there at all. We may have 4 completely different drivers, but you know what? That's the reason for 10 straight weeks, including here tomorrow. We're going to line them up, and we're going to race them every single week for either 400 miles, 500 miles, or 500 laps.
Very good. Well, Larry, thanks for all of your picks. We'll have to wait and see how your grid turns out. Race fans, be sure to tune in for all the action and to see how Larry's grid does. And don't forget, you can keep up with yours too at NASCAR.com/grid. I'm Miss Sprint Cup Kim Kuhn. We'll see you soon.